The date is Friday, June 3rd, and you're listening to Entertain This, a thought-provoking podcast encapsulating all things entertainment. On this episode, we're finally talking about a game that's been sweeping the internet by storm, Elden Ring. It's yet another hit created by From Software and is similar to the Dark Souls series of games in a lot of ways. But what this game does differently is what has made it so successful. So enjoy.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite show on the internet, encapsulating all things entertainment. It's Entertain This.
Entertain This.
As always, I'm Alex.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Nick.
And we are struggling without our showrunner, Chloe.
Woo! We miss you.
We miss you. We hope that your show is going well. And when you come back, things will start not being bad anymore. But until then, it's allergy season, folks.
Yes, it is.
Anybody else suffering? I'm suffering.
Yeah, very
I'm
hard.
actually suffering for once, and I'm not enjoying it.
You are?
A little bit.
You spend so much time in your little basement, I didn't think that any pollen could get to you.
I go outside every so often. I don't mean to brag or anything, but
It is a brag nowadays. Now, let's talk sneezing. I want to talk sneezing for a second.
Yeah.
Can we talk about sneezing?
It's the sneezing season.
It is the sneeze. Wow, yeah, you're so right, Eminem.
the season.
Wow. Did you just walk across 8 Mile to get here, Eminem? Is that what you did? I sneeze aggressively.
Me too.
It's loud, and it's not so much anything coming out of my nose or out of my mouth. Sometimes my sneeze is like the pressure of being pushed in between my nose and my mouth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does your
I
head
know exactly
explode?
what you mean.
Is that what happens?
It's just like hits, right? And the worst part is I sneeze probably 8 or 9 times in a row.
Mm-hmm. I'm a good 3 or 4.
3 or 4. When the first one comes, you're like, oh, this is going to be all day.
Jeez.
Oh, this is the rest of my day.
It's like if you really know someone, they know how many to wait after to actually say God bless you.
See,
Yeah.
there you go. Yeah.
That's so true. My sneezes have gotten to the point where once I'm finished with them, I know I'm done because I aggressively throw myself onto my bed and I lay there for 3 hours, a sobbing mess. But
That's rough.
let's talk about an even worse case of sneezing, and that's the sneezing while driving.
Your eyes have to close for a minute, don't they?
Have you experienced the sneeze while driving?
It's
So
awful.
scary.
It is awful.
Now, mind you, my body doesn't care if I'm driving. It will still sneeze 8 or 9 times in a row.
Mhm.
Full eyes watering on the highway going 65 and my eyes are closed for a good majority of it. It is the most terrifying thing I have ever experienced. And I bring it up because I experienced it today and it was terrible.
Oh.
So anyway,
And you're
that's your cold open. Get it, a cold open?
Well, it's more of an allergy open, but yeah.
It's a hay fever, isn't that what it's called?
We'll accept it.
No, hay fever is something else, isn't it? We're not a medical
Acceptable.
podcast. You want a medical podcast, you go listen to Sawbones. You're here for the good stuff, the good entertainment stuff,
Yeah.
the entertainment adjacent stuff, the stuff that we qualify as entertainment, but honestly, sometimes we color outside the lines.
Yeah.
That is what you're here for, and that's what we're going to bring you. Isn't that right, Michael?
Yeah.
Because it's your week, isn't
It
it?
is my week. Yeah, it is.
It is.
We're gonna talk about something that I'm very excited for, because it is something that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, but I wanted to make sure that I gave myself enough time to really work through it and to make sure that I actually got to experience the full thing before we got a chance to like spoil it all for ourselves.
I know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I do
So
Is it finally time?
it's finally time. It's
Congratulations.
finally time
About-
for us to get together, have a little talk about potentially one of my favorite games of all time now,
Wow.
Elden Ring.
Attaboy.
Bioshock. Oh, okay.
I knew it was going to be Elden Ring. I just knew it. I had
Yeah.
the feeling down in my bones.
Yeah, I mean, I've been wanting. I stayed up the night that it released until I think 6 a.m. playing the game.
Goodness.
I mean, like I've talked about From Software games a multitude of times now. Talked about Dark Souls 1. and talked about Bloodborne, even though I don't even know if we can qualify the Bloodborne episode as a Bloodborne episode because
It was.
we just went off the rails so hard.
I learned a lot. I enjoyed it.
But yeah, so no surprise. Michael's coming to the table, coming to the podcast, the microphone, with another From Software game because gosh dang it, I can't get enough of these. So what are some of the things that y'all remember about what makes a From Software game a From Software game?
It's about the challenge. It's about the grind. It's about hurting your own feelings over and over again until you're so embarrassed you have to move to Portland.
Yeah, that's not an intentional part, but yes, that is a big part of the game.
That's it. I know that there's a lot of like mythology and Cthulhu type of stuff in Bloodborne specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Big old monsters and big old hats.
Yeah, some of the biggest things about these games is they have these big grand mythologies that you kind of discover as you're playing through the games, and that is kind of it ends up being like very related to this inherent challenge that these games present. The purpose of these games aren't to be challenging, but it is more so to encourage the feeling that you get of triumphing over big challenges. And just that huge boost in adrenaline and serotonin that we all just get filled with when we.
Who's serotonin?
This is my sister.
Oh,
yeah,
serotonin.
But yeah, so Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a new franchise that From Software has come out with. It's similar but not exclusively related to Dark Souls, which is the one that they've got like 3 of those. That's not related to Demon Souls, which came before Dark Souls, or Bloodborne, which came in between Dark Souls 2 and 3. So it's a brand new thing. And what comes with a brand new thing with From Software games is there are deep dives into the gameplay as well as the lore that's happening within the game. And in this case, we probably get exposed to shit like right off the bat in the most From Software way. And just like the first cutscene you see is just this slow like picture show of very enthusiastic narrator just yelling names of people at us that we've just never heard of before.
Is that how it really starts?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
It starts with like the fallen leaves tell a story. And
no, they don't.
America. It's like Queen America.
Okay, I guess that's
some dung-eater.
That's basically how all D&D campaigns start, so I really can't complain too much.
Yeah. Oh my god. And it's like one of the first things that you encounter in these games is just the sheer meme ability. Like even in this like opening cutscene, it's like, okay, you get introduced to the loathsome dung-eater. Who's a character that you come to meet during your gameplay, as well as how the narrator says it is Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing. And it's just like, all right, cool.
Who?
Okay.
Yeah.
And this, our hero, who has decided to name himself Ball Liquor.
Exactly.
Sure.
But yeah, so throughout this entire game, you encounter tons and tons of things that just immediately stick out as like, oh, okay, I know exactly. Like, this is going to take off on the internet. And it kind of goes to lend credence to like, this game sold 13.4 million copies. That's a lot of games. And for a good month after this game came out, it was probably the number one thing that all of video game any video game space was probably talking about.
Big time. Oh yeah.
Like you two don't even play these games, but I'm sure that you all have heard plenty about it.
Correct.
Too much.
Yeah. So let's do like a quick little dive into who you are in this story, because you're not like an undead. Well, you kind of are, but you're not like a hunter like in Bloodborne. No, you are called what's referred to as a Tarnished. So one of the first thing, I guess, before even that, like one of the biggest things about this game, in it being called Elden Ring, is that it's kind of referring to a like both metaphysical and physical ring. It's more of like these runes that form a ring. But it creates this connection to like gold. And because it's the Elden Ring refers to what's called the Golden Order, which is essentially the laws and bylaws that this world operates on. There was like just the order before, but the queen, who is like kind of the vassal for the Golden Order, which is kind of like a Cthulhu-esque outer god. I know I'm throwing a lot at you real fast.
No, I heard Cthulhu and I got scared, so please continue.
Yeah, so she is kind of like a vassal for basically this Cthulhu-like being that all we see that it wants to do is enact good upon this world. It wants basically these rules and all these things in effect that the world operates on. Well, Queen Marika, who's the vassal for it, she basically plucked the rune of death from this order, basically meaning that no one can truly die. So essentially you die, you return to what's called the Erd tree, which is like Yggdrasil in Norse mythology, like the world tree where everything kind of spawns from. And you return to the Erd tree's roots, and then your soul is then born anew. So you can't truly die. And it's because she plucked the rune of death from this that it's now called the Golden Order, which creates a lot of signifiers of tying this idea of gold to this world. And that's where we get the idea of you being this undead person who is called a tarnished. We know what tarnishing is, right?
I don't believe tarnishing happens with gold, but go on.
I don't know, does it?
I know it happens with silver.
Gold tarnishes, dog.
A little bit.
Yeah, gold does tarnish and scratch over time.
Here's the hot and spicy is there's no way that we're going to be the line of defense against that fact check. That fact check would have happened far before it reached this podcast if that were not true.
Exactly. So the whole idea of tarnishing is basically that like some material just loses its luster.
It oxidizes is what happens.
And you can de-tarnish something. You can like clean all that oxidation off. But it is just this idea that something is no longer at the same quality that it used to be at. And that's where you, as a player, you referred to as a tarnished. You are someone who once had this value of gold, but now you have lost it, and you've come to what's called the Lands Between, which is the world where this whole game operates, to try and reclaim your purpose, which is to become the Elden Lord. Elden Lord is basically just a person who performs the actions on behalf of the vassal of the Golden Order. Essentially, the whole idea is that Queen Marika, after she basically one of her children was killed. They found a way to like properly kill him, and in retaliation to that, she lost her faith in the Golden Order, so she broke it. And ever since then, she's been imprisoned, and these different runes that made up the Golden Order have now been shattered and split between all of her children and all of these people that are vying for power within the Lands Between. And so it's your job as a tarnished to come back, defeat these deific people within this world, reclaim these runes so that way you can reforge the Elden Ring and restore order to the world.
So is the Golden Order a group of people, or is this the group of people that comprise the ring?
So the Golden Order is the ring, these runes that were shattered and split among. So it's more of like a metaphysical concept that is like a representation of the rules and laws that exist within the world.
Okay.
Yeah. So like your whole goal is to go defeat the shard bearers, shards of the Elden Ring, defeat them, restore the Elden Ring, and restore order within the Lands Between.
So here's my question for you.
Yeah.
Are you a little summoning bitch? Or do you fight these MFers by your lonesome like a true hero?
I always play my first playthrough without summoning anyone.
Attaboy.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't know if it's because I discovered Dark Souls like too late in the game to really like get the whole experience of summoning other people to play with me, but like I feel like I don't get the actual sense of like true satisfaction with beating a boss unless I do it on my own. And to kind
So
of like to illustrate this, in every Dark Souls game, you are in every one of these From Software games, you're essentially put up against something that is supposed to kill you, so that you can learn from it.
Mm.
My patient ass. Essentially, this happens at the beginning of Elden Ring, and you're immediately sent to like another place, and you can't refight it. Me, on the other hand, I spent 4 hours the first night that this game came out deleting my character, restarting so that I could fight that same boss over and over and over again, so that way I could eventually beat it.
did you beat it?
Yeah, I did. I learned how
Attaboy.
to parry it.
Attaboy.
Yeah, I learned that one of the classes that you could start off with, who's called a prisoner, starts with a shield that has a bigger like parrying window.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like it has more frames where it's like if you catch an attack in that window, it'll parry the attack and leave the boss open for a big like critical. I learned that it has more of those, so I was like, cool, I'm just going to go in with you and just counter the fuck out of this guy.
I mean, you still learned what the developers wanted you to learn.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, like, for me, it's...
If not, you didn't walk away from that experience with ease for the rest of the game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you already know these games and how they operate, you kind of come into it, like, with be able to have that mentality of, like, all right, this isn't going to be me losing to this thing is not a punishment. This is supposed to be a learning experience. And I just need to have patience with that learning experience so I can let it all set in and actually overcome it.
It like Cuphead.
Yeah, it's a lot like Cuphead.
So let me ask you this. This is just a question that came to my mind, but
yeah,
would you recommend this game be the first kind of Dark Souls series game that I play?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah. Okay. I think this is now the best entry within all of these games, no matter what spectrum you are at within your like enjoyment of the series. Mostly because this game introduces a lot of different mechanisms and mechanics in the game to make the game easier.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, one of the biggest gripes that people have about these games is that there's no difficulty slider. It's like it all is given an exact like difficulty that you have to overcome. Well, I would say that Elden Ring is probably one of the first of these games that, in a very fleshed out way, offers a mechanically driven difficulty slider. And what I mean by that is that one of the first things that you get in this game is you get the ability to summon just creatures to come fight alongside of you.
Okay.
And
That's why I was asking if you were a summoning bitch or not.
Yeah, you get
so that's what that means. All right.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
get a summoning bell that allows you to summon like wolves or skeletons.
A dinner bell.
You're like, ringy dingy, help, ringy dingy.
And the big thing with it is that if you summon these creatures, usually they have a pretty good health pool. Usually they could do pretty good damage. The biggest thing though is they take the boss's attention off of you, which gives you opportunities to attack safely, which is what these games are all about.
Nice.
And it allows you to do that in like structured bosses where it's like you walk into like these like dedicated arenas to fight bosses, or there's bosses that you encounter in the open world that you can also summon things there with.
Those are the ones that scare me. You're just making your way across. You're like, you don't expect anything, and then all of a sudden, oh, look, a mini boss.
Oh my god, Elden Ring has so many of those like oh shit moments where it's like, what the fuck did I just stumble into? Like, as a good example, in the first area called Limgrave, there's a lake called Lake Agil that if you're just like are making your way through the lake and you come across this small little island where there's a bunch of these like really scrawny undead guys like worshiping the sky. They've got like some like pyres and shit. You just like walk up to it and all of a sudden like you hear out of the corner of your headphones just a quick little like you're just like, excuse me? You see a giant fucking dragon dive in,
oh no,
knock everything over and kill all of the undead that were seemingly worshiping it. And then it's like, okay, cool, now you have to fight this thing. Good luck.
Great. Just what I wanted.
Yeah, it's like that. It does a lot of one of the things that I think this game actually does the best, especially for an open world game And this is where I think like the difficulty becomes a really important part of the game's inherent design, outside of even the aspects we've talked about in the past with Bloodborne and Dark Souls, is that through its difficulty, it heavily encourages exploration. Like essentially, like your first boss that you probably run into that's not like a tutorial boss is a tree sentinel, which is basically you walk out of the tutorial area, you see a big wide like landscape, and you see a giant knight on a gold horse just kind of walking up and down this path. And so like as a Dark Souls player, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, I have to fight that thing. If I don't learn how to fight that thing, I'm not going to get good at this game.
That's your first thought. You're like, I'm going to fight him. You're not.
Is that the one that kept killing you?
This was the second one that kept killing me.
Oh, so you worked for 4 hours to get past the first one, and then this is now the second one.
Yes. Yep.
Holy cow.
So it's like you make your way down and you just start fighting him. And it's like, okay, this guy's on horseback, so he can move all over extremely quickly, has very small openings, and you hit him like once for the first time, does like 15 damage, and he has like hundreds and hundreds of health that you have to get through. And it's just like, okay, hi, I'm not supposed to be here, I guess. And it's like, it's through this difficulty that you learn. It's like, okay, this game really does truly give you the freedom to experience its different challenges whenever you are ready for it.
Yes.
So it is open world this time.
It is completely open world, which is one of the biggest, newest factors about these games. And that also kind of lends into the whole like inherent difficulty slider, is that you can go and explore almost every single part of this world and get all of the upgrade materials, get all of the like runes to level up. You can go farm, you can go do all of this stuff to make it so that you're like big and buffed up much further than you ever should be by the time you fight the first like main boss. And it's like it's really brilliant because there's, especially in the first area in Limgrave, and like even further south, the Weeping Peninsula, all these places before you have to actually fight the first boss, there's stuff everywhere. Like you turn around a corner and there's like a new catacomb to explore. There is an enemy encampment with items in it, and there's just like giants that are up on it, like 7 giants up on a hill that you can either fight and earn a ton of runes by fighting each one. But then there's also like a little a glowing statue in the middle of all 7 of them. So it's like if you lure one of the giants over to attack the statue, all of a sudden you get like 8 upgrade materials, and which is going to make things a lot easier for you.
Nice.
And it's just like there's a ton of stuff just happening all around you that really is just so satisfying, especially as a person who likes that 100% complete stuff, where it's like I feel like no matter what, I'm being rewarded for taking just like one step more, for just turning around a corner, and just I get rewarded with a whole new experience. I get rewarded with something that I'm going to remember throughout my entire playthrough. And the game is just filled with that.
How does this game compare to, like, say, Breath of the Wild, which is another game that's open world and very at your own pace, with bosses just kind of spread out throughout the land and different challenges to accept and different places to explore? Do they have kind of the same vibe?
Yeah, it's very much the same vibe, and it borrows a lot from the stuff that I think makes Breath of the Wild a very good game. Like in Breath of the Wild, you can go and fight Ganon like at right when the game starts. It's going to be difficult as shit, but you can do it and you can win. The very same thing applies to Elden Ring. It's going to take you a lot longer to get to this game's Ganondorf, but you can do it if you really want to. And at the core of it, like the thing that makes Breath of the Wild great to me is that you can see something across the entire map, and you can go to it and you'll be rewarded for doing that. Elden Ring has the exact same experience where you can look across, you can get like up high on something, look across like the map, see something that seems interesting, and you can ride your horse goat thing over to it. You have a host, like a spiritual horse goat thing called Torrent, that you can summon whenever you want to get you from place to place.
Torrent, like the pirating website that I never used ever before?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay, exactly.
So What is this game's vibe? Because now I'm picturing like a darker, more like Lord
Medieval
of the
ruins?
Rings,
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings kind of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, it's very similar to like a Lord of the Rings situation where it's like the vibe of the game differs very much depending on where you're at within the game.
Dope. That is the correct
Good.
answer.
Yeah, so
So
like
there are moments where you're like in the Shire and you're like in
Right,
like a
exactly.
happier, kind of greener place, and then there are times you travel to like this disgusting dark lava. Like
Yeah, exactly. Like the first place that you go to is called Limgrave. That's like where everything kind of opens up to. And it is everything is bright. There's like lots of trees, there's like some rundown churches. But like everything is like vibrant and like the landscape is healthy. You can go from there, you can go to one of the biggest nightmare fuel places is this place called Caelid, which you can just walk into at level 1.
can't just walk into
And
Kalen.
yeah, it's you can walk
One
into
does not
Caelid.
simply.
You can walk into Caelid, and it is this rot infested red landscape of old dead trees and
Nope.
mutated creatures. Like one of the first things you see when you come into Caelid is a giant bird-like creature with a bird's head with like a mutated enlarged almost plucked chicken body
Nope.
on top
You
of
have
it.
to, you have to fight it.
Eventually you
If
can.
it moves, you fight it in this game, right? If it
You can
moves, you have
pretty
to
much
fight it.
anything that moves in this game. Yeah, as like as a self challenge of what I did and this is part of the reason why it took me so long to beat the game, is because for me it's like if I see something that can be fought, I am fighting it, and I'm going to have the patience to beat it.
Are there
That
save
is good.
states? Like if you died, you have to start over.
So essentially, just like how there are bonfires in Dark Souls, and there are like lamps in Bloodborne. In this game, there are sites of grace.
Okay.
So kind of walking
name.
things back a little bit, the whole idea of you being tarnished and you kind of being this undead thing, you have been brought back to life because of this aspect of the Golden Order called grace, and just this idea of like grace has re-entered your eyes, and you can see grace, essentially this metaphysical force that can point you in the direction to your goals. And it's whatever grace has deemed is your goal. For you, in your case, grace has deemed for you to be a candidate to become an Elden Lord. And so throughout this, essentially, you get new pointers to where you're supposed to go by resting at different sites of grace, essentially your checkpoints.
Okay.
So it's like you can go and you can fight something. If you die, you're going to lose your runes, which is like the same thing as souls or blood echoes. And they're going to stay at the spot where you died, and you're going to be resurrected at the last visited site of grace.
Well, that's neat and feels more of an exploration than your traditional checkpoints.
Yeah. And one of the cool things that I think this game does a really good job of is like in these older games, you'd spawn at these like if you die to a boss that there's like a big run up to, you'd have to run, you'd spawn back at your bonfire, and you'd have to run through everything again, and something could very easily kill you on the way there. And then it's like, I lost my souls. Now I'm like
Minecraft.
Yeah, it's what the game does is right before most of the bosses, it places what's called a stake of America, and which is basically like a quick spawn point. Yeah, it's basically just like a quick spawn point. So it's like if you die, you're going to spawn right outside the boss arena, so you can just go again, which is something that
insertion for your Call of Duty players.
Yeah,
if you will.
So let's do a story time, because I want to understand the story of this game and what is driving you to fight these creatures, other than just being in the meta of I want to fight them because it's a challenge that I want to complete.
Right.
Yes. There has to be lore. Surely there has to be lore.
Yeah. So we kind of like been drip feeding it throughout this, but
I want the whole cup.
Yeah. Okay.
I want it poured on me.
Let's start from the beginning. So you have Queen Marika. She is the first goddess throughout this entire.
Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah.
And to kind of go back even further, so this story was this world was helped developed by George R. Martin, the guy behind Game of Thrones.
Bet.
This is
which
what he's
is-
been doing.
Yeah, which is fantastic because it's like this is probably one of the most well-developed lores in all of these games.
That man
However,
loves turtles. I'll tell you that.
One of the things that I really resent about him, though, is he has this quirk that he likes to do when he names characters. He likes to make characters who are related have similar names.
Oh,
This
so like
lends-
America and Erica.
Well, it'd be like Marika, Melina, Marina. I don't remember if that's an actual name, but it's like
If you had a chance to change your fate, would you? That's Merida.
yeah. So your maiden in this. So basically, you have to have a maiden who helps level you up until you have a maiden. That's like your big
In a
draw
minute, I'm gonna need a maiden to come help
maiden.
me level up.
There you go. So the thing that makes you like a unique Tarnished in this world, outside of the fact that you're trying to become an Elden Lord, is that you are maidenless. You have no maiden. Yeah. That in and of itself became a huge meme. where it's just like-
you get no bitches.
yeah. And it's the first thing that the first NPC that you're introduced to. Basically, it's just like you come out and you're like, hi, nice to meet you. Who are you? It's like, oh, my name is Vare. You're a Tarnished, right? Oh, but you have no maidens. Oh.
You got no bitches.
You are maidenless.
it's like
you have
that-
no maidens.
That mega mind, like no bitches meme. It's like very much applies.
Does your character wear a fedora and like have a neck beard?
That's incredible.
You can make it that way.
Sire, it would seem you are maidenless.
Yeah.
But I can tip my fedora pretty well.
And
Thou
so-
Lance sees no penetration, for thou art maidenless. Idiot.
Oh
Poor
my
guy.
god. Yeah. I mean, just imagine this is everything that was going on in the community in the first
Oh my
month.
god, that's incredible.
So
Maiden-
well,
You're
and then
telling
like,
me that even in this game I gotta be maidenless?
well, and the other thing too is like whenever you walk up to the sites of grace that I mentioned earlier, it doesn't say like sit at the site of grace or like sit at checkpoint. It says touch grace, which for the first 20 minutes, every time that you see that, I guarantee you're going to misread that as touch grass.
Touch grass.
Yeah, so it's like so it's like every time that you're walking up to something, it's like the game is telling you just go outside. Just go outside and touch grass.
touch grass.
Go touch some grass.
I refuse.
Go touch some grass. Go get a maiden. This sucks.
That's the thing is like it really shows like Dark Souls players just love to be like degraded. It's like and the game itself is just like you fucking nerd, get outside.
You got no bitches and you never go outside.
So to kind of roll things back to the story, you meet through resting at the sites of grace this girl named Melina, and she is the one who she's like she again reiterates it to your face, you're maidenless, which means you can't get any stronger, but I can play the part of a maiden. I can do this for you. And so she does. Yeah, so she does.
She's like, I could be,
but
your
she
maiden.
only does it because Torrent, the horse goat, chose you. So she's like, I'm trusting Torrent, who is this spiritual creature, in his judgment of you, and so I'll help you too.
And now I'm your maiden.
Yeah.
Got it.
But yeah, so you are this guy, and you there's a few different things that you can. I don't know, where do I want to start this as like a full-on lore thing. For anyone that wants like a very comprehensive like overall look at the lore, I highly recommend a guy named Vati Vidya, VAATIVIDYA, on YouTube. He has tons and tons of fantastic lore videos for Dark Souls, Blood, any From Software game. He's got great lore videos, but his Elden Ring ones are fantastic. Highly recommend it.
And
But
is this similar to the other From Software games where you have to kind of discover the lore? It's not just spoon fed to you.
yeah, this one I will say probably does spoon feed it a little bit more than any of the others,
Okay.
or at the very least makes it a lot easier to infer what's going on. But
I feel you. I
you
feel you,
learn.
game developers.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that like this is the first time they've had such a well-developed lore to really play with that wasn't something
Mm.
that they created. So I think for a lot of it, they really want to just be like, look at all of this great stuff that's here that like we're just gonna like tell you for the first time. It's like, oh, this is a nice change of pace.
As a
Um,
DM for Project Icosa, there's definitely some stuff that you're like, I'm just gonna bake this in, and then you
right,
get about 3 minutes in, you're like, actually, I'm just gonna pull this out,
right.
and I'm just gonna, guys, look,
Here's the
Look
shit.
at this thing I made.
look at it, I work hard, good.
This it's definitely one of the more easier to I don't know, it's not easy to digest, but they help you with a lot more. Basically you have Queen America. She has become this vassal for the Golden Order, and she wants to conquer the lands between. She does so by partnering with a dude named Horalu, warrior of the Badlands. But
Hey,
he's
Nice
basically
name.
like a big barbarian dude who's just like, I'm gonna rip everyone to shit. And she's like, okay, that's great for being like my military commander. I need you to be a little bit more of a elegant, respectful person so that you can be my husband and become the first Elden Lord. So she gifts him like this, what's called like the Lion of Sarash, which is she gives him a lion, like
hey, I know
grafts.
you like killing people and being all manly and tearing people to shreds and stuff, but you
Yeah.
gotta chill out, so I'm gonna
So
give you a lion.
yeah, exactly. And the
Okay.
lion calms him down.
Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop,
He
beep.
can
It
actually
doesn't add
behave
up.
as a normal person. Yeah. And they go through and they conquer the lands between. And it is basically they go through it and they conquer it pretty easily. The only people that give them like any sort of trouble is the Carrion royal family, which is basically like the mages. Like they, instead of worshiping the stars, which is what the Elden Ring basically is like a physical manifestation of, um, they worship like the moon, and like the
Oh.
cold of space.
They a
They
bunch of
worship that.
witches.
Yeah, so they're like a bunch of witches, and they use what's called glintstone sorceries, which is basically like comets. Like they get their idea of magic from comets and shit like that.
Interesting.
The main reason why they put up such a fight is because of this queen, the queen of the Carrion royal family, called Renala. She is the queen of the Carrion royal family, but she also is the head of the Academy of Raya Lucaria, which is this like subsection of area, kind of similar to like Limgrave, the Weeping Peninsula, Caelid, these other places we've talked about. And what ends up happening is Marika, the queen, sends this other guy named Radagon, who is like Radagon of the red hair, to go and fight against her. And it's through battle that these two people end up falling in love. And it's through not battle, but through this conjoining of the families that they end up conquering Raya Lucaria. And they have a multitude of children. They have, oh gosh, what are the names of them? There's Ronnie the witch. There is, oh, I'm
I'm sensing a
blanking.
theme here. Are they all our names?
Yeah, they're all our names because
Got it. Cool.
George R. R. Martin's a bitch, and he likes to make shit more confusing than it needs to be.
He said, in my family, there was George and Georgina and Gregory. And
Another G name?
to be fair, my sister's name also starts with A. So I'm right there with him.
It's a family thing, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, and so they have a bunch of children, and one of them, Ronnie, the one I was mentioning before, the witch, she is what's called an Empyrean. Essentially, an Empyrean means is one who's capable of becoming the host or the vassal of the Elden Ring. Someone who's able to basically take over Marika's job. And the big thing with that is that like once that happens, basically your destiny is then tied to the Elden Ring. And it's through the mediators of the Elden Ring, so not the vassal, but the mediators, who are giant fuck off rotting fingers. Yeah, so like the
Oh,
whole
I get it. Okay, the ring goes on the finger.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, they're called the two fingers because it's just two of them, and the rest of like their hand is just gone. It's just this straight down. Um, they they're able to attune the to the Golden Order and listen to its will by attuning to it.
Wow.
And so they become the interpreters of grace, who then have to enforce the will of the Golden Order upon the Empyreans. And Ronnie is basically like, I don't want to fucking do that. And so she rebels. And she is the only Empyrean to rebel. So she comes up with this plan that involves stealing the Rune of Death. Now, when earlier we talked about...
What a great idea.
Yeah. So earlier when we talked about how Marika plucked the Rune of Death from the Golden Order, she gave it to her companion called Malekith, who is essentially like every Empyrean gets what's called like a shadow, which is in this game, it's represented through like a wolf like person. Malekith is her shadow. Basically, they are their protector. They make sure nothing bad happens to them. They're also there to make sure that they don't stray off of their grace, like off of what the Golden Order envisions for them. So if they rebel too much, then their shadow's job is to then kill them.
Your shadow kills you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Marika entrusted Malekith, her shadow, to hold on and keep safe the Rune of Death. Well, Ronnie figured out a way to steal that, to steal a part of the Rune of Death. And what she did was she basically infused the Rune of Death into two knives, and she basically had Marika's son, Godwin the Golden, who she had him. So he's the guy that we talked about earlier that caused her to want to break the Elden Ring. That was her first son that was killed. And she had him killed at the exact same time as she was killed. And what they ended up being able to do was have his Godwin's spirit killed, but then have Ronnie's body killed. And so what this meant was that you have Godwin's body that is still alive but lacks a soul. And then you have Ronnie, whose soul then was moved into a puppet. And she's the one who at the very beginning of the game gives you that spirit summoning bell that lets you summon and make things easier for you. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like the catalyst for all of the events of Marika. She breaks the Elden Ring, which means that she's then becomes imprisoned in everything, and that she can no longer be like what she was meant to be. But one of the other things that happens slightly before this, though, is that Radagon and Renala, after they have their kids, Radagon just dips. He just leaves Renala. He's just like, without saying a word, which devastates Renala. Like she basically is like curled up in her tower and is just like refusing to leave because she's too heartbroken.
Damn.
And so you find out that Radagon actually left to go take over because Marika expelled Horalu, who was later named as Godfrey. Once he took on the Beast of Sirash, he took on a whole new name that was more reflective of his more nobilistic nature now.
I feel like Pepe Sylvia right now.
Exactly. Like when
There's a lot of characters here. Yeah.
Yes. Which is why the fact that I'm doing this with 0 notes is I'm very proud of myself.
Pat on the back for Michael.
But also, bad Michael, write notes.
Well, but it's also like I have put in over 300 hours into this game at this point. And so
you're basically an expert. Yes.
It's all just fucking up here now.
So where do you come in?
Well, hold on one second. So basically, Marika banished Godfrey because his job was over. The lands between were taken over. So then Radagon leaves Renala and goes and becomes the new Elden Lord to take over from his job because they no longer needed that like heavy military might. It's kind of along with that is they banished Godfrey along with all of his warriors, who are known as the Tarnished. They were driven by grace before. America steals the grace from their eyes and then pushes them out to no longer inhabit the lands between. And the lands between is basically being like drip fed as these Tarnished as time goes on, as they get reintroduced to grace. They refine their grace, which is basically their driving force. And that's where you come in. You are a Tarnished, and you want to do what your grace is telling you and become an Elden Lord, to take over for Radagon, who wasn't able to keep America from destroying the Elden Ring. And yeah, so then you go through, you basically fight all of America's kids to take their runes. Yeah.
Time out. Are you the only Tarnished then?
No.
So there are other Tarnishes who are also trying to do the same thing, right?
Well, so every Tarnished, for the most part, has a different goal. The general one is for them to become Elden Lords, but the problem that you run into is that a lot of these other Tarnished have been in the Land Betweens for much longer than you. And over time, if you're unable to meet your goal, you eventually lose sight of grace. You re-lose your grace. So you lose your way.
Okay.
And then it becomes your job to figure out like what you want to do now. Like you basically regain your own like self and self purpose. There's only one other Tarnished, I believe, that you meet in the game. The one that was like, Gideon off near the all-knowing, that guy. You meet him, and he's the only other one that still can see grace and who is still pursuing his goal of becoming the Elden Lord.
There's only one Elden Lord, right?
Yes.
And so you and him are competing for the Elden Lord position.
Essentially. But he runs what's called like your base area in this is called the Round Table Hold, which is kind of this like extra dimensional space where these different Tarnished can come. And that's where they like basically come together as a group to try and like pursue whatever their goal is. He runs the Round Table Hold. Okay. And so he sees it as like his purpose is to help you like gather. He thinks that like the best way for him to pursue becoming an Elden Lord is to learn everything he can. Gideon off near the all-knowing. So he spends his entire day sitting in the Round Table Hold just reading books. And so he decides that like, oh, it'd be beneficial to you and me if like I can just give you all this information to help you out, and you can go and like kill these lords and make things easier for both of us. So he basically like rides your coattails throughout this whole thing.
Good guy.
Yeah.
He screw you over
you
end
up learning. How much do you want me to spoil shit? Are you two ever going to play this game?
It's your episode. I know for a fact he screws you over because there's no way he doesn't.
Yeah, you find out that like this guy who was supposed to be helping you throughout all of this, he was just kind of taking advantage of the situation, and he ends up like learning that like, oh, Queen Marika doesn't actually want us to become Elden Lords. She thinks that like the whole purpose of like she basically wants all of us to grow and become stronger through suffering, and we can only suffer if there's no Elden Lord to reforge the Golden Order. And so it gets to a certain point where he's like the evil villain of this whole game.
Like Ridley.
Yeah, and so you get to the end where it's like he's just kind of standing in a room, like taunting you and giving like his villain monologue.
Sucks. That sucks.
Yeah, and
minus 10 points to this game. That sucks.
But what you can do though is you can go up and interrupt him at any point and just knock the shit out of him.
Nice. Plus 10 points to this game. Yeah. That rules.
One of my favorite things that people have done is there is a spell in this game. So like there's this whole concept of madness, which is like just a subsection of faith in this game. It's like you get touched by the flame of frenzy, and so when you stare into the flame of frenzy, it causes you to go mad. You can use spells derived from the flame of frenzy, and one of those is one of my favorite ones in the game, where it's essentially you just grab like another player's head, you bring them close, and you just emit the fire of frenzy from your eyes and drive them insane.
Holy shit.
And so one of my favorite things to do is when Gideon Offnear is just kind of sitting there like monologuing at you, you could just walk up to him, grab him by the head, and just like scream into his eyes and just like cause him to go mad.
Awesome.
Just like you can if
Bullshit.
your stats are like aligned in the right way, you can basically kill them like by doing that.
Incredible.
Nice.
Yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, so let's see here. Yeah, your job is just to kind of go around and eventually become the Elden Lord. You pursue these different great runes. There's lots of awesome side quests which help develop the lore of this world. One of my favorites is with Ronnie. The witch, the one who gives you the summoning bells and who like had basically her cousin killed.
She's a
Yep.
puppet.
She's actually pretty damn cool. And her whole side quest is basically like you trying to help her overcome her destiny as an Empyrean, and you work together with her shadow because she's an Empyrean. She gets a shadow. Really awesome, like half wolf dude named Blythe, who you get to meet in like the first like 15 minutes of the game. Really good guy, and along with her giant like war counselor EG, and her other guy who will not be mentioned. He's a dickhole. But you essentially like go around and you help her accomplish her goal. Her goal is where she wants to figure out how to completely sever her ties to Grace, to the Elden Ring. And in order to do that, she has to kill her 2 fingers. Her 2 fingers are still out there. And so you go through these super obtuse side quests that requires you to like make a bunch of leaps in logic to just figure out what's going on. Like at one point, like she transfers her soul to a tiny doll, a tiny version. And at one point you have to sit at a site of grace, and it's like all of a sudden you get an option to talk to the doll. And you have to sit there and you have to talk to the doll 3 times for it to progress the sub quest. It's like, and eventually she's just like, "You're fucking weird. Why the fuck do you want to talk to a doll so much?" Anyways, I guess if you're gonna try and talk to me, yeah, it's me. You figured it out. All right, well, I guess just help me out. I guess like help
You're
me do
expected
this
to
shit.
figure that out. That's the weird part, because it's kind of like Zelda Breath of the Wild. What do you call them? Shrines. Where
Yeah,
it's like, here's this really difficult puzzle. Good luck.
The really funny thing is somebody had to figure that out first.
Yeah.
For everybody else to know, because that's not just something you just figure out.
Well, standard practice in these games is to, whenever you meet an NPC, is you completely go through all of their dialogue. So it's like you want to get to the end where all they're doing is repeating the same shit over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like one of those times where it's like, if you're a perceptive player, you can notice like very small differences in the silence that proceeds trying to talk to her. So it's like something changed, which means we haven't exhausted the dialogue for this. So then it's like you have to be able to pick up on that little shit. There's tons and tons in this game though that like I do not blame anybody for missing out on the first time through. But I wouldn't let that like discourage you from even trying to play through the game. There's so much that you can discover. There's so
What'd you
many
play it on? You play it on PC?
Yeah, I played it on PC. So my first playthrough, I played through like just on my own time, and without like any guides or anything. And then the second one, I did it with a 100% guide that I found on YouTube, which helped me come across a lot of the crazy shit that I ended up missing out on. Which is like, on one hand, I find really cool that there's that real sense of like discovery that you can drastically change your experience with the game based off of just what you end up figuring out.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, you can miss a lot of really cool shit that are like really important like sequences in the game that for me help make it as good of a game as it actually is. Like when I left the game for the first time, like after the first playthrough, I was like, yeah, that was really good. That was really, really good. And I loved it. How does it stack up against the other ones? I think I still like Bloodborne the best. Like, I think it still isn't added up. But then I played through it again with 100% guide and saw everything I missed out on and learned all these new stories and these new subplots within the game. I was like, oh, I get it. Like, this is the best game. This is potentially the best game I've ever played. And there's just like like there's like 4 secret endings that like you can just figure out like by going down random paths. There's like
4 secret endings.
Yeah, it's like you get basically the ability to recreate the Golden Order. You can leave it shattered, or you can complete Ronnie's quest line, which basically her quest line is replacing the Golden Order with like the Order of the Moon and the space, and because that is in and of its own entity. Or you can do what else? You can go through the quest line of another one, which ties into the whole, like what happened to the body of Godwin the Golden, if that's still alive, but it lacks a spirit, like and basically you can go through that whole quest line and you can replace the Golden Order with the true rune of death, which then basically like you then create a world of death. You can replace it with what's called like the curse rotted rune or something, which is essentially like that the dung-eater. You go through his quest line, and turns out he's like one of the most vile, like name hints at it, but he's obviously one of the most vile
poop.
Yeah, he eats poop.
He's called a dung-eater. He eats poop.
His whole MO is that he doesn't just kill people, he defiles their corpse to its lowest point.
By eating their poop?
So there's like some Japanese mythology
Poops on
here.
their corpse? I don't know.
There's some Japanese mythology here in that they at one point believed that a portion of what housed your soul existed like far up your butt.
Weird place.
Yeah,
weird place for it to be.
The whole idea was
weird place. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like similar to the root chakra, right?
Yeah,
we're talking
similar.
About chakras being out of whack, and
it's a similar idea. But so there's lots of like indication of that, and that like he basically like I don't know exactly what he does, but it basically is like he defiles corpses of these people to the point where it develops this curse inside of them that prevents them from being able to return to the Erd Tree, which then gets them into this place that's stuck between life and death, that is just this like life just filled with curse, where it's like the whole idea is that he basically takes these curses that he develops inside of them, takes these people's souls, which he finds up their butt, and then he takes and he eats it. Hence why he's called the dung-eater, and he basically like keeps these people's souls that he killed inside of his own body, preventing them from ever being able to truly die.
I don't want to poo-poo on Japanese mythology, but I just want to leave it at there's really only one way they could have convinced themselves their soul was up there. Because that is a male pleasure spot. Is all I'm saying. That is pretty much the only reason they would have convinced themselves of that.
I'd believe it. I would absolutely believe it.
Interesting.
But yeah, and so I don't want to end it on that, but
no, put a bow on this baby.
Yeah. Not to end it on poop and
like it'd be the first time.
Right. So this game is probably it is From Software's masterpiece. It is their ultimate vision come to fruition. It is everything that they've ever wanted to make out of these games. It is the best rendition of it. It is completed from front to back. Everything in between is just so well executed. And for people who don't even like these games typically, I still recommend at least trying it out, trying to play it for at least 2 to 3 hours, because there's so much that this game does to really just help you get engrossed not only into the way you play the game, but into the atmosphere within the game. And it really just helps you appreciate everything that's going on. And really just anybody who wants to even try this out, just try and really embrace the whole ideology of perseverance. Death in these games is not a punishment, it is a lesson learned. Whether you come out and you fight and you lose again even faster, you still are just learning more and more the more you play. And that is really the root of these games, is just feeling that overwhelming joy once you overcome and put to use these lessons learned and just make the best of it. And there's going to be times where you're probably going to yell at yourself, yell at the game. It's all part of the fun. Just go into it with an open mind and just with the idea of like persevere and you'll have a great time.
I say that is great advice for Elden Ring and also with life.
Yeah.
And remember, don't let the dung-eater get you. When
No.
we come back, quick this with Dan Robertson. See you then.
Bye.
For those of you who are new to this, we already recorded that segment last week with our guest of last month, Dan Robertson. Did I say Robertson or did I say Robinson?
I don't remember.
You
might need to dub over it.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a clean take. Dan Robertson.
You
Okay.
said Robertson the first time.
If I didn't, there was a clean take for you.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure I did. I always do that for some reason, but I think it's because Christopher Robinson. Anyway, we already recorded that bit, so it's done and over with. So we're going to end the episode here a little dirty. Anyway, entertain us so we entertain you and you get entertained. Piss. Bye.
Or
Hey, should I play the outro or is it even worth it?
no.
Too late.
This episode of Entertain This was written by Michael Savoya, with additional commentary from Nick Mustakangas and Alex Steele. Our showrunner and resident fact-checker is Chloe Price. Our theme music is Brush Bubble by Aaron Spencer, with interstitial music by DJW. Tune in every Friday for new episodes, and thanks for listening.